morning with Rich here. So for today's topic, let's continue our discussion about Dynamo. So on our previous video, we have discussed about data types. Now this time, let's try to discuss performing math functions. All right. So let's take a look at what kinds of things Dynamo can do when we combine number inputs with nodes that perform functions on number. All right. So let's begin with going to our math library, and then let's go to operators. So here you can see we have a series of mathematical operators or functions like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So we can test whether numbers are less than one another, equal to one another, or not equal to one another. Okay, so let's begin with something simple like addition. So I'm going to click addition here. Okay, and it's now dropped to our canvas. Okay, so this particular node here, just like what we have learned in our previous video, takes an x and y input. Okay, two inputs in total. So if we hover over our pointer to the x input, so you'll notice that Dynamo gives us a little bit of a preview, a description of the type of data that it expects in order for this node to run properly. So because it says here var, so as you can see there's a var there, it means Dynamo can actually take any variety of data into this node, and it might perform slightly differently depending on what you give it. But we're not limited to only plugging in, say, a number data type. Alright, so for this example, we'll plug in two numbers, x and y, to see how this addition node performs. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the search here. So I'm going to key in number. Okay, I'm going to click twice. Okay, and then I also want to include the watch node. Okay, so I'm going to search for the watch node. Okay, just click that one and then I'll just put it here. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and plug in both of my number nodes into my x and y here. Okay, and then I'm going to plug the output into our watch nodes. I'm going to plug it here. Okay, so we've now built a function that is adding 0 plus 0. And if you see what's returned in the watch node, the answer is 0. So there you go. You just built your first Dynamo graph that is able to add two numbers together. Okay, so now let's see what happens when we change any one of our number inputs. So I'm going to click inside the number input, and then I'm going to change it to, let's say for example, 5, and then enter. So you will notice that our watch node is now reporting the number 5. So 5 plus 0 equals 5. So let's also change the number plugged into our y input. So let's say for example 7. So enter. Okay, and then you'll notice that our watch node updates the number 12. So we're not limited to typing in only whole numbers or only integers here. So we could change the number 7, like for example 7.6, enter. And you'll notice that our watch node now reports the decimal addition as well. So 5 plus 7.6 equals 12.6. So that's good. So we've now built a program that takes two number inputs and adds them together. Now let's drop in a node again from our math that is called round. So I want to do some rounding off numbers. So I'm going to type round, and then let's look for math here. Okay, so this one. Okay, so you'll notice that there are two round nodes available. So it's pretty common in the node library to find two nodes that perform the same function. So the difference between those or these two nodes here is usually the inputs that they require. Okay, so in this particular case, the first round node only takes one input, a number, whereas the second one allows us to specify how many digits we'd like to round to. So for this example, we're going to use the first one. Okay, so I'm going to click this. Okay, and then as you can see, the round node only takes a single input, okay, which is a number. So I'm going to plug in my 7.6 here into the math round node. So I'm going to click that. All right. And up until now, we've used our watch node as a way of previewing what information is coming out of any given node. Okay, so that can start to clutter up your graph, especially as you start to place more and more nodes in your program. So there is another way that you're able to preview what information is coming out of a node. Okay, so how to do that? So I already teach you how to do that during our previous videos, but just a review. Okay, you can do it by hovering over the dark gray area portion in the middle of a node. So in this case, we're seeing the number 8, right? You see, you hover your pointer and then you can see here the preview, which is number 8, okay? So you'll notice that when you hover off in space like this one, that preview collapses back into our node. But if you'd like to be able to continue to see it even after you move your cursor, okay, so you can hover over the dark gray portion again and click on the pin icon, okay? So that will allow you to move your cursor and the node preview will remain visible. So as you can see, the round node here is taking 7.6 as our input, okay? And it's rounding it up to the next whole number, which is 8. If, for example, the number 7.6, this one changed to, let's say, 7.1, and then enter, the round node automatically updates its preview and it's round down to the nearest integer, which is 7. Okay, so you might have also noticed that as I was changing those number inputs, our addition output was also changing, right? You notice that? So 7.1 plus 5, so that is 12.1. So the power of Dynamo comes from the ability to string together multiple functions one after another. So this round node doesn't necessarily need to hook directly up to a number input node like this. So we can instead hook it up to the output of the sum node. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on the output of the addition node. Let me just move it here. So this is the output of my addition node, and I'm going to replace the input of the round node. So I'm going to place it here. So you'll notice that the wires adjust themselves because you are not allowed to have multiple wires that connect to a node's input. Only one wire can ever hook up to any given input. So remember that one. Okay. So what we've now accomplished is we built a program that has two steps. Okay, one step is to add, the other one is to round. So it takes two inputs, adds them together, and then it rounds it to the nearest integer. All right, so now we can always go back to the very beginning of our graph, change one of our inputs, and then watch the entire program recalculate live. So if, for example, 7.1, I'm going to change this to, let's say, 9.7, and then enter. So Dynamo automatically runs those two steps. So it adds the two inputs together, which is this portion here, and rounds to the nearest integer, resulting in 15. All right. So now let's take a look at the less than node. Okay. So let's use less than node. Less than, less than. So it's also a math. Okay, so it's not showing here. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go to my math library operators and then let's look for less than. So I'm going to click this one. there's my less than. So just like the addition node, this asks for two inputs. So we can place two more number nodes into our canvas. But Dynamo allows the output of a node to be fed into the inputs of as many nodes as you'd like. So if you want to wire these two number, the, the output of these two number to the input of our less than node, that is also possible. So instead of putting another couple of number node, so you can use the first two number nodes that we have placed a while ago. Okay, so let's place the two number nodes that we already have placed on our canvas into the inputs of our new less than node. So I'm going to click that one. I'm going to, let's say the X is this one. Okay, and then this one is the Y. Okay, so as you can see here, you'll notice that the output of this node is a Boolean data type. You remember Boolean, our data type? It's asked for yes or no, or true or false. Okay, so this node is asking the question, is X less than Y? So is 5 less than 9? Yes, that's why the answer here is true. Okay, so in our case, the number 5 that is plugged to our X and the number 9.7 that is plugged into our Y. So it's asking basically like, is 5 less than 9.7? So in this case, yes. So 5 is less than 9.7. So it returns the value of true. Okay. It's asking our data a question. So you'll also notice that the order of these two inputs is very important. If we were to reverse them, we should see that the opposite is true. So 9.7 is not less than 5. Okay, so we should see a false value. All right, so after we reverse the input, like for example, I'm going to put this here, and then I'm going to put this here. So as you can see here, the value now is false. Okay, so here's an example of a function that takes two number inputs, but it doesn't necessarily output another number. So in this case, it outputs a different data type, a Boolean data type. All right, so let's look at another example of that. So we're going to focus more on geometry in our later videos, but let's get a little taste of how those number inputs play into the same way that we can start to build up geometry in Dynamo. Okay, so the node that we are going to use this time is actually the node that we have used during our previous videos. So we are going to look for point by coordinates. Point by coordinates. Okay. Okay. So points by coordinates. So I'm going to use here points by coordinates. Okay. So we have two points by coordinates here. We have by coordinates x and y. The other one is by coordinates uh, x, y, and z. So once again, we are seeing that there are 2 point by coordinates nodes which both perform the same function. But the difference here is that the first one only takes an x and y, which is this one, right? Whereas the second takes an x, y, and z. Okay, so let's use the one that takes three inputs. So I'm going to click this one. Okay, so we have three inputs here. So points by coordinate. Okay, all right. So, so you'll notice that if we hover over any one of these inputs, so Dynamo specifies that we do need to plug in a double, which is a number that's allowed to be a decimal. But Dynamo also tells us that if we don't give it any information, what is the default value? So the default value is 0. So currently we don't have anything plugged in, so Dynamo going to create a point using 0 as the x value, and the same is true for x and y. So if we hover over those as well, okay, so as you can see, it's 0. Okay, so you might also notice that as soon as we drop this node on our canvas, our points by coordinates. Okay, so our background preview changed to display a new point, this one, that wasn't there a second ago at the origin of our dynamo graph. You see, I'm going to delete this. I just want you to notice. So I'm going to select and delete. Okay, so as you can see, it disappears, right? But once we place our coordinates x, y, and z, as you can see, there is already a point created. Why? Because the default value here is 0, 0, 0. Okay, so because we haven't plugged in anything, this point is located at 0, 0, 0. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug our 5 number input into our x input here. Okay, and then you will notice, okay, so let's try to click this one. All right, so this is now our point here. Okay, so as you can see, it's already changed. All right, so as you can see, the x now is 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the location of that point is now different. So it's 5, 0, 0. Okay, so 5, comma 0, comma 0. So that's why it's located now here on along the x-axis. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to click this to go back again to my graph view. Okay, so the x value is 5 instead of the default value of 0. So if we are going to plug in our 9.7 into our y, again, you will notice this portion will change. So I'm going to plug it here. Okay, so as you can see, it's now changed. And of course, if we change the value of either one of these two number inputs, it will recalculate the entire graph, including the location of that point. Okay, so now we've been doing an awful lot of retyping numbers in order to change the values of these number inputs. So aside from typing a value, let's use another a node that will let us to key in a number, but this time let's use our slider. Okay, so I think I have already shown this on our previous video, the number slider. This one, so number slider. All right, this is our number slider. So the number slider node looks a little bit different from the number input, okay, that we are used to seeing because there is a slider that we're able to click and drag to the left and right. So as we drag to the right, you'll notice, see, the number output gets bigger, and if we drag to the left, it gets smaller. Okay, so by clicking on the pull down here, this one, so you can adjust it. Okay, so you can adjust the settings of the number slider by clicking on the pull down number. Here we can set the minimum and maximum. Like for example, the minimum that I want to put here is minimum 0. Okay, then I'm going to change the maximum to 1000, for example, 1000. And then you can also change here the step. All right, so this is now the step. So let's say 1. As you can see, I can now change from here. So if I'm going to plug this to my Z, all right, and then I'm going to change now. So as you can see, okay, let me change the maximum, go back to 20, enter. All right, so that we can see it nicely. See, our node here, our point is now changing. Okay, so basically this is how the function of mathematic or some of the mathematical nodes works in Dynamo. Okay, so we are going to discuss more about this, but basically what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to show you that you are able to use those number from creating a function like addition, and aside from that, connect it to another node that returns a Boolean output. Okay, and then you can also use the number slider if you are not using key in, so you can slide it. Okay, so that's it for our math function. So hopefully you learned something from this video. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can just put it on the comment section below. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.